लगातार।
चुटकी बजाओ पैसे कमाओ,
चुटकी बजाओ पैसे कमाओ।
Come on, guys. Video game है क्या? Investing and trading is a serious business. We invested 15 years and 50% resources on financial research, results.
Absolutely and relatively.
Safely and consistently too.
Introducing Mac 40 Next with advanced synthetic technology. Maximum riding comfort. Maximum power. Environment friendly. Longer engine life. Mac 40 Next with advanced synthetic technology from Bharat Petroleum.
SBI Life Insurance Company Limited is now undertaking an initial public offer by way of an offer of sale by the promoter selling shareholders of up to 120 million equity shares of face value of 10 rupees each. The 100% book built offer being offered in a price band of 685 rupees to 700 rupees per equity share. Opens September 20th, closes September 22nd, 2017. For risk factors and more details, refer to the red herring prospectus.
This is TV18 and you're watching CNBC TV18.
Presented by EY, building a better working world.
Welcome to Eye on India. I'm Shireen Bhan. Go green or get bulldozed. Road Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari's message to India's auto industry was crystal clear. Petrol and diesel are a thing of the past. Electric vehicles are the future. Now, keeping in mind the centre's push for electric vehicles, it is then key to understand the challenges and opportunities a policy move like this brings and also analyze the preparedness of automakers and India's race to become the world's third largest car market by 2030. Here's a quick check of where things currently stand when it comes to India's electric vehicle mission, what we plan to achieve, how we intend to achieve it. Let's just take a look at the total market share. Less than 1% is the market share for electric vehicles in India. 95% in fact consist of low-speed scooters. So that is the current state of affairs. If we take a look at how the big gap is right now between electric vehicles and petrol and diesel, only 2,000 electric vehicles, that's as for FY17 sales. And look at the numbers there as far as petrol and diesel vehicles go, electric two-wheelers as well as petrol and diesel two-wheelers. So the gap is very, very large. A mammoth 16 million petrol bikes and scooters sold. Now here's the most revealing fact. India has only one original manufacturer for electric cars, and that is Mahindra & Mahindra. The two electric cars available from the Mahindra stable don't come cheap, anywhere between 6 lakh rupees to 11 lakh rupees. That's the mileage, 140 kilometers per full charge. That is what Mahindra has on offer. Now, if you take a look at McKinsey's estimates that India currently has about 500 charging points, and that is well below the need. In fact, Delhi alone, the national capital alone, will require 3 lakh charging points if we want to achieve the target of going electric by 2030. So that's where things currently stand. But let's take a look at the global comparison. India says it intends to go electric by 2030, Scotland by 2032, France by 2040, and Britain by 2040 as well. Let's take a look at the global market share of electric vehicles, and it continues to be minuscule. As we pointed out earlier, India less than 1%, France 1.4%, Britain about 1.3%. Let's take a look at the manufacturers. In India, you have just one, Mahindra & Mahindra, but globally, if you take a look at Britain and France, there are at least a handful: Volkswagen, JLR, Ford, Nissan, Citroën, BMW, and a bunch of others. So what is the electric mobility mission all about? How realistic is it? It's ambitious, but how realistic is it? Here's Amitabh Kant, man heading the Niti Aayog, on the government's EV plan.
I think there is a challenge. There's a challenge, but India has several advantages. India's advantage is that its per capita usage of car is very low. It's only 20 per 1,000. If you look at America, it's 800 per 1,000. Now, when you're moving from internal combustion to electric, zero emission vehicles, the amount of destruction of established infrastructure that you will have to do in America will be incredibly tough. In India, it will be far more easier for you to move from here to the electric vehicle section. Secondly, in India, 80% of the transportation right now is within a radius of 5 kilometers. And therefore, the shared and the connected vehicle will be far more easier. To my mind, what you said is important because the automobile and the auto component sector accounts for about almost 7.2% of India's GDP. Therefore, whatever India does should be technology agnostic.
When you say that it should be technology agnostic, what do you mean? Because if we look at what we are hearing from the government, and we don't have a clear transition plan in place so far, but the government is talking about battery swapping, where you're in a sense taking the power away from the OEM and giving the power in that sense to the battery manufacturer, so you're further commoditizing that business. So when you say technology agnostic, what is it that you mean?
So my personal view is that you'll have to keep pushing for battery swapping, you'll have to push for interoperable charging stations, you'll have to push for a lot of reforms on two-wheelers and three-wheelers. But the last word on technology for zero-emission vehicle has not yet been said. And whether it'll be electric, whether it'll be hydrogen, or whether it'll be something else, as we roll out over a period of... Because the critical point we must understand is that at the moment, the penetration of electric vehicles is very minimal. But I think around 2026, 2027, the cost of an EV vehicle will match the price of a combustion vehicle.
Well, to discuss the challenges, opportunities and considerations for government and industry, joining us today, Arun Malhotra, Managing Director at Nissan Motor India, Mahesh Babu, CEO of Mahindra Electric, and Rakesh Batra, Partner and Senior Leader Automotive at EY. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here. Mahesh, let me start by asking you, because Mahindra is the only one electric already at this point in time. You know, for very, very long, you've asked the government for fiscal incentives. As part of the Niti Aayog's EV mission and vision, they have suggested that there be fiscal incentives. The government so far has said, look, we don't want subsidies. We don't believe in subsidies as far as electric vehicles go. Manufacturers need to figure it out. Will it be viable without fiscal incentives from the government?
See, it will be viable after a period of time. What we are saying is any new technology which is being adopted in India, it needs some push and pull both. So what we are saying is, if the manufacturing base increases, obviously technology cost falls down.
Right.
When it happens, obviously we don't need a incentive, fiscal incentive from the government. But to have a cleaner and a push from the government to some time till the technology becomes mass produced in India, we need some support because there is a technology cost today on EVs. Which will be coming down. You know, already battery cost is falling down drastically.
Yes.
So that will help us to remove the fiscal...
You know, let's talk about the battery cost. And Arun, let me ask you this, because Nissan globally is a leader in the electric vehicle space as well. You've got the Leaf and a bunch of other products. In fact, Carlos Ghosn now saying that another half a dozen or a dozen zero-emission vehicles will be put into the market. How much can we see the cost coming down for it to be affordable and viable in a country like ours?
I think what Mahesh said very rightly, we need to first look at, we need to first start the process. At the moment, we have to accelerate it, be a catalyst. So cost can definitely come down with certain volumes. But I believe the government has to take some bold steps in this direction. One bold step is, like, we are the largest manufacturer of EVs in the world. We got 300,000 Leaf on the road. Why don't we start with importing them at a very subsidized rate? Today the import duty is 110%. There are other technologies also available, which Nissan is pioneering. In Japan, we've got the e-Note, which is basically electric range extender, which has a small IC engine, but can output is in terms of electric. Can we start with that process? Japan has started giving subsidy. So I think a roadmap has to be done. It won't happen. Rome was not built in a day. So that acceleration, that catalyst has to come in. And then all stakeholders have to be involved in it, whether the government bodies, and finally, the customer. That is very important. You have to look from the customer
Absolutely.
perspective.
But, you know, I want to get both Mahesh and you to comment on what Mr. Kant told me. He said manufacturers need to stop thinking about this as just a domestic play and a domestic opportunity. Manufacturers should manufacture in India for the rest of the world. India should leapfrog the rest of the world when it comes to electric vehicle manufacturing. You're talking about importing and subsidized importing into India. Will you consider making in India
So I'm
electric
saying
vehicles?
as a start process, because there's a lot of learning, a lot of technology, get it into the country. And obviously once they can, India is a big export base for automobiles. We export a lot of vehicles. Why not? But the point is the tipping point has to be reached. The direction of the government or the Niti Aayog is very clear. India has to take the lead electric vehicles. But there has to be a number of steps in the middle. It can't just leapfrog totally.
Just to add what Arun is saying, what happened in China is very important. China became the largest market of EVs in just 2 years' time. How did they do it? Because they had a vision. What Amitabh Kant or the policy makers are saying is, this is the vision we are setting through Niti Aayog. There are 3 stages in Niti Aayog. The report is not that by 2030 you will one day reach there.
Sure.
So there is a stage. First is to create demand. Next is to produce mass market and then get into global scenarios. So if he says we have to be globally looking at, there are 3 steps to it. First is to create demand. That's why there are a lot of orders being talked about in Delhi.
Yes, the tenders that are being given out.
Talked about. So demand is getting created as per Niti Aayog. Next is mass manufacturing. The demand will allow people to come and invest. Mahindra was already invested, then others will come and invest in technology. Then the mass manufacturing happens, then this becomes the base. India becomes the base for EV. Then we will be able to export, obviously. That's the third step.
All set to participate in the tender, which should open shortly?
Sure.
Yeah? All right. That's an unequivocal sure coming in there from Mahinder. Rakesh, let me come to you now. You know, as we were talking about it, there has to be a transition plan to 2030. We're still not clear whether the government intends to do away with any sale of petrol or diesel IC engines by 2030 or not. I asked Mr. Kant that question. I didn't get a categorical yes or no. So there perhaps is some wriggle room there. One has to keep pace of the reality here with the infrastructure as well. But what would you say what are the steps that need to be addressed in the first stage, so to speak?
So I think, you know, first of all, the adoption is going to vary by segment.
Yes.
2-wheelers is going to follow a different trajectory. 3-wheelers is going to follow a different trajectory. Commercial vehicles, you know, maybe the last to come, just because, you know, it's not, technology isn't there yet to date for, you know, long range, road haul, etc. And, you know, cars, whether it be for individual ownership, might come after, let's say, fleet application of cars, right?
So you're saying shared should be given priority along with electric?
Yeah, because I think there is a much better, you know, value proposition in that for everybody. There's a good value proposition for the manufacturers because they get volume. You know, there's a good proposition for the operators of you know, shared mobility services because, you know, they get a better total cost of ownership because the utilization of the vehicles is higher. And there's a benefit for the consumer because he pays less per kilometer travel. So there's a good value proposition for all stakeholders in that. So I think definitely, you know, that's an area that needs to be given a push. Anything, not only shared mobility, but, you know, even buses or, you know, public transportation systems.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think what's going to happen from a transition perspective is we can't think about it in a global sense. We have to think about it by segment, by city, by urban, by rural, different you know, application areas.
Let's just focus on urban and let's talk about public transportation. In terms of infrastructure development, in terms of preparedness, readiness, what is it going to take? Because the first tender is going to focus on public transportation, isn't it, Mahesh?
See, when you talk about public transport, one is about the buses, which is mass mobility, and another is the last mile connectivity. So the focus more would be on these two, on public transport, and mostly, as he rightly said, the cars will go into shared mobility first. Because the EVs, more and more you run a day, actually it is more economical than running a regular vehicle. So you are more economical as well as you are going to be environmental friendly. And hence both the segments are getting addressed. Customer will get value, the operator will create value, and we will get business by selling more EVs, and hence the ecosystem will develop. So, and hence the ecosystem will develop around last mile connectivity, mass mobility, and to start with shared mobility before it gets into a personal private driving.
Yeah. Arun, let me ask you this, because one of the innovations that the government is talking about is this battery swapping business to make it more affordable and viable in India. What do you see as being the big challenges there? Because manufacturers see this as commoditization, so to speak, because in that sense, the power moves away from you to the battery manufacturer. So how do you see this?
The way this business is developing and the way battery has to be separated out from the vehicle. Whether that battery is manufactured in a separate unit by the same manufacturer or by different manufacturer, that has to be seen. I think the biggest challenge will still be, it's not the battery IC, that still is, there is a lot of improvements happening, is the location, the charging range and the locations where you can charge it. And you need a solution for it. And you just showed us data from Delhi. We are just nowhere. And we are not trying to limit to a particular area. So I think government has to involve manufacturers. We've got experience. We want to get our Nissan Leaf. We've got to pilot it in the country. We are talking to the government also to pilot it. There are a lot of learnings can be done. And I believe everybody is in the learning phase at this point of time. So you have to have a very open mind. Various solutions can emerge. So you can't have one clear cut, only one solution.
I think everyone is grappling with what the solution will be. There's NTPC, Power Grid, all of these public sector undertakings that are looking at the possibility of getting into the charging business. But the question, Rakesh, also is, and studies show this to us, that if you don't do electric vehicles with low carbon power, then you don't achieve the same benefits that we've been talking about. So at this point in time, we're generating most of our power using coal. The hope is that we will move to renewables. But until that happens, then how should the government address this issue? Mr. Khan talking about solar, etc. But, let's be clear about when we will actually see that starting to take off on the ground.
Well, I mean, that's a very good question, and I hope we don't end up in a situation like CNG, where we started to roll it out, and then,
and saw lines all night outside of the National Capital Region at every CNG pump.
And in other cities, wherever it is. So I think we have to be careful we learn from our, experiences of the past. But, I don't think there's any easy answer to this till the renewable, capacity on the grid builds up, right? Today, it's low, but we heard him say today that it's going to reach 60%. So if it gets to that kind of level and there's, smart grid that can utilize off-peak times. I mean, there are lots of, technologies that can be used. Both for charging of batteries on the electric vehicles, as well as for deploying, energy that's stored in the battery back to the grid during peak time. But right now, I think where India is, that's a little bit of a dream. As far as the technology is concerned, I think it exists in the world today, right? So it's not all that difficult. But to get it deployed across the distribution networks and to have the renewable energy power actually come up and feeding the grid, I think is a matter of a little bit of time. I think if we can execute on it, it's a wonderful vision. It will certainly put India way ahead of any other country.
But the question is on the execution. We will take a break, gentlemen, but there's plenty more to talk about. As you can see, this is an exciting discussion. We'll be right back with you. You're watching Eye on India.
SBI Life Insurance Company Limited is now undertaking an initial public offer by way of an offer of sale by the promoter selling shareholders of up to 120 million equity shares of face value of 10 rupees each. The 100% book built offer being offered in a price band of 685 rupees to 700 rupees per equity share. Opens September 20th, closes September 22nd, 2017. For risk factors and more details, refer to the red herring prospectus.
Let's get to where we choose our own path. Let's get to where we build our own identity. Let's get to where we break the mold. India, let's get to work. Indeed.
Heavy duty, long lasting, highest selling draw runners. Hetic telescopic channels for your draws. Load capacity 45 kg. Lifetime functional warranty. German quality. Indian price. Hetic fittings. German quality. You can trust.
फाइनली शॉपिंग
ये देखा तुमने?
होम लोन पे 12 EMI ऑफ, पर अभी हमें क्या जरूरत है?
शादी अभी ही तो है।
तो
शुरू में सभी खुशी से रहेंगे, फिर ड्रामा शुरू, माँ की सुनो या बीवी की। इसलिए अभी माँ की सुनो, नया घर ले लो।
आपसे दूर,
घर आसपास ही लेना।
होम लोन्स पे 12 EMIs ऑफ फ्रॉम एक्सिस बैंक।
Get me out of here.
Get in.
Okay, drive.
Get up front.
But you can't put your spell on me. Put your spell on me. No. You cast a spell on me, yeah.
The new luxurious TUV 300.
Presenting UTI Focus Equity Fund Series 4. It invests in hand-picked stocks spread across key sectors that may help in accelerating your wealth creation. NFO closes on September 25th. Contact your mutual fund distributor or give a missed call on 8655019940. Mutual funds are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Fabrics never felt so fluid. Lever Natural Fluid Fashion. Look for the Lever fabric tag in leading brands and outlets.
Pratap Snacks Limited now proposes an initial public offer of equity shares of face value of ₹5 each for cash at a price band of ₹930 to ₹938 per equity share. Issue opens on Friday, September 22nd, 2017. Issue closes on Tuesday, September 26th, 2017. For risk factors and other details, please refer to the red herring prospectus available on the website of SEBI, GCBRLMs, BRLM and the stock exchanges.
Watching Eye in India, and we're discussing the government's electric vehicle mobility mission. Rakesh, let me talk to you about what seems to be mixed signals that the government is sending out when it comes to taxation. The hybrid industry, for instance, is crying hoarse, saying we're taxed at 28%, and if you want to promote less polluting vehicles, then you should have actually given us a tax incentive. Electric vehicles at 12%. We don't know what will finally happen when it comes to battery swapping, because batteries are taxed separately as well. So from a tax perspective, what is it that the government needs to do? Forget fiscal incentives, but primarily to ensure that the total cost of ownership becomes much more viable as well.
Yeah, so I think, as Mahesh was saying earlier also, incentives could be in the form of either demand or also in rationalizing the cost structure. So they've done that on electric vehicles by putting a 12% GST as opposed to 28 to
plus cess,
whatever,
yeah.
50% for the other vehicles. But I think they should look at it as not just electric versus ICE. I think we should look at it as environmentally friendly versus ICE, right? There are different technologies that are playing out, and there's more to come in the future with hydrogen fuel cells, etc. We don't know what's the most efficient. At this point in time, electric is very efficient, but the others are certainly more efficient than ICE.
Right.
And if you take that whole well-to-wheel analysis, etc., they are also helping that that cause. But I think the little bit of challenge I see right now, dichotomy I see right now with the model that the government is talking about with battery swapping. An electric vehicle with a battery fitted to it is, charged GST at 12%.
Yeah.
If you were to swap batteries, or as the government is saying, buy the vehicle separately and buy the battery separately, the GST on battery, I believe, is 28%.
Yeah.
So already the customer is, getting disadvantaged by separating out the battery from the vehicle. Secondly, whenever he goes to swap the battery, which presumably he's going to need to do every day or 2 days or every 3 days, then there's a service charge for that that the battery swapping agency is going to charge him. Well, that's again going to be at 28%. And for fleets, it may be okay because they can absorb that and get set off. But for individual consumers or customers, they're at the end of the chain. They have to pay that 28% every time.
Yeah.
So I think this needs to be studied and made sure that it's viable for customers as well.
So let me then ask the two of you in terms of the unintended consequences. And, no one's arguing with the fact that we need to move to greener, cleaner technology. But the unintended consequences of what we've seen so far, and we still don't have granularity or clarity on a lot of what the government wants to do. What is it that you would be concerned about, and what is it that you would like to put forward by way of consideration for the government?
I think what we will be looking for is a stable policy, because now the direction is set.
So, as Mahendra, are you in favor of no petrol and diesel vehicles being sold post 2030, or do you believe that there should be a judicious
That we are
mix?
not saying. That we are not saying.
You're not saying.
That we are not saying. What is important is how do we make EVs more prominent to help the economy environment. You have $80 billion import oil bill. You have the top 10 most polluted cities. Many of the cities in India are there. So what intervention is needed to disrupt the mobility to make sure there is a participation by a sustainable mobility? That's what we are saying. Even if you take by 2030, even 10% of the vehicles get converted, it's 300,000 vehicles out of the 3 million what we are talking. In 2030, it's going to be like 6 to 8 million. So it's going to be 800,000 vehicles. Even if you take one vehicle, over running a period of, let's say, 5 years, is going to have an impact of 100 to 150 trees. Think about running 300,000 vehicles or 800,000 vehicles in it. So that's what we are looking at. So we are looking at support for the disruption to make EVs more popular. While we are saying that, we are also saying that there will be a play for other...
You're also saying protect my diesel and mostly diesel vehicles for you. Yes, Arun, let me give you the final say.
Well, first of all, the direction is very clear. There's no two opinion on that.
He said it, bulldoze. I'm going to bulldoze you into doing it.
One is bulldozing, doing it, but I think you require a lot of dialogue and discussion. You can have a discourse even, but the dialogue and discussion. There's a lot of learnings available. So I think they need to interact with industry and various stakeholders, because we have to take a certain things. We are ready to talk to the government, and the direction, there is not one single clear direction at this point of time. There are various alternatives available. And I clearly believe there is a scope for, I'm not talking about mild hybrid, but hybrids in a way which has electric to 80%, 70%. Let's start the journey. It can't be 0 or 100, a part of it. And the last but not the least is the customer. You have to look at customer's comfort, you have to look at customer cost and convenience. Because if customer doesn't accept it, then you may keep on manufacturing or you may say anything. So ultimately this has to be done. I mean, fleet is a starting point, but the customer has to be done. So I believe the direction is clear and we are very excited on it. But I think it will not happen overnight, and there will be a phased program and there will be a lot of discussion. I'm sure India can emerge. There is no two opinion on that.
India can emerge. A dialogue, a discussion with all stakeholders is the need of the hour. This is not going to be the last of the conversations that we have here on Eye on India on this issue that is grappling policymakers as well as automakers. But Mahesh, Arun and Rakesh, appreciate you joining us here on the show today. We will continue to discuss the many developments around this area. But for today, from all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.
Presented by EY, building a better working world.
SBI Life Insurance Company Limited is now undertaking an initial public offer by way of an offer of sale by the promoter selling shareholders of up to 120 million equity shares of face value of 10 rupees each. The 100% book-built offer being offered in a price band of 685 rupees to 700 rupees per equity share. Opens September 20th, closes September 22nd, 2017. For risk factors and more details, refer to the red herring prospectus.
Gulf Oil, high-performance car engine oil, designed to perform under pressure. Pressure moves you. Will Power for All in India by 2022 become a reality? Can innovations, investments